All right, today we're going to be starting chapter 4. And chapter 4 is all about triangles. And we're going to start off in 4.1 learning of different ways that we can classify triangles. So we can classify triangles by their angles and also by their sides. We're going to first talk about their angles. Before we do that, just some reminders. A triangle is a polygon. So remember that polygons have sides, they have vertices, and they have angles. So your sides are just your segments, which are listed here. And then your vertices are your points where your sides meet, which are A, B, and C. And then a triangle obviously has 3 angles. And just as a reminder, you can name those angles with 3 letters, or you could just name them with 1 letter since there's only 1 angle coming out of each vertex there. Learning first about how to classify triangles by their angles. There are 4 different ways. So first is an acute triangle, means that all the angles inside the triangle are acute, which means they're all less than 90. An equiangular triangle, just think about what that word equiangular means, and you can see in the picture based on those arcs, all the angles are equal. And so that would be an equiangular triangle. An obtuse triangle would mean that 1 angle is obtuse, and so that means that that 1 angle is more than 90. If you have an angle more than 90, that's an obtuse triangle. And then lastly, your right triangle would be when you have 1 right angle. And remember, you have to know it's a right angle, so it's labeled in the picture, or they tell you 2 sides are perpendicular. So if we look at this first example, it says classify each triangle as acute, equiangular, obtuse, or right. So you're looking at the angle measures that you see inside the triangle. Notice that you have an angle larger than 90. So that would mean this is an obtuse triangle because it has an obtuse angle there. And then on 1B, if you notice, all the angles are equal. So we call that an equiangular triangle. Example 2 says classify triangle PQR as acute, equiangular, or obtuse. Explain your reasoning. So we are looking at, let's just highlight here, PQR, we're looking at this big angle here. So make sure you're looking at the correct angle, or the correct triangle, I'm sorry. So we have 1 angle in this triangle that's 45 right here. We have another angle that's 31, and then this angle up here would actually be the sum of 45 and 59, which would be 104. So since angle PQR is greater than 90, that would make triangle PQR an obtuse triangle. And our reasoning would just be 1 angle is obtuse. Okay, this time we're going to use the diagram to classify triangle PQS. So let me just erase what I have here. So triangle PQS would be this triangle here. And if you notice, QSR right here is a right angle, and QSR and PSR are a linear pair, which means that angle also has to be a right angle. So triangle PQS would be a right triangle. And the reason is because, I'm just going to be specific here, angle QSP is a right angle. Or you could say it has 1 right angle. Another way we can classify triangles is by their sides. So we have 3 options for classifying by sides. We have an equilateral triangle, which means equal sides. Notice all those hash marks mean all those sides are equal. Isosceles means you have at least 2 sides congruent. You can tell by the hash marks that 2 sides are congruent. And then your last one, so that was isosceles, your last one is scalene, which means no sides are congruent. And so potentially the triangle has nothing marked, or you might see a picture marked something like this, and that would obviously imply none of those sides are the same, so you would determine that's a scalene triangle. All right, the first example here, we're going to classify the sound box of the Russian lut, I think is how you say that, below as equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So it looks like these two sides here are the same or congruent, and so this would be an isosceles triangle. Example 4, if point M is the midpoint of segment JL. So M is the midpoint. So if M is the midpoint, remember that means that JM is the same as ML. Those are the same. So since ML is already marked with one hash mark, that means JM is also now going to be marked with one hash mark. We want to classify triangle JKM as equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So we're looking at this triangle here, triangle JKM here. If you notice, KM was already marked. So in this picture, we are showing that KM and JM are marked. Now, they have told us that the length of JL is 1.5. And so if we cut 1.5 in half, we get out 0.75. I'm going to put that in my picture here. That's 0.75 there, which also means this is 0.75. And this would also be 0.75. So now that you know the actual length of it, what you should notice, KJ was already 0.75. So now JKM has three sides that are the same. And so this would be an equilateral triangle. And the reasoning, all the sides are the same or equal. Okay, number 5, this one says find the measures of the sides of equilateral triangle FGH. So this is our keyword equilateral, which means I should mark immediately in my picture all of my sides are equal. And it doesn't matter which two you pick. Essentially, the way this equation works is all of these measures are going to be equal to each other. But to solve it, we just need to pick 2. So I'm just going to pick these 2 right here that I have left and right. So I'm going to subtract 2y on both sides. So I have y minus 3 is equal to 5. And then I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So y would be equal to 8. And the question said, find the measures of the sides. So I'm going to take my 8 and I'm going to plug it in to my side measures. So when I plug in 8 here, I have 2 times 8 plus 5. So 16 plus 5 would be 21. And then essentially this should work for all of them if we did it correctly. So if I did 3 times 8 minus 3, that's also 21. And then your last one should also be 21. So your side measures would be 21. And this is your homework assignment for 4.1. So you can write this down. This is also available to you on Canvas. So you can find it on Canvas as well. You are now free to start your homework assignment. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.